My name is Rich Martin, Senior Technical Marketing Engineer at Itential, and I'm going to speak to you today about CLI Automation with Itential's Automation Gateway. And let me make a really basic request right from the beginning. Don't judge me by the fact that I have marketing in my title. I am a network engineer from a long way. I'm a networking nerd from a long time past. And I have a little bit of coding experience, but a really big passion for helping people, networking people get into the automation game. And so what I'm going to talk about is the CLI strategy in our automation gateway and how we can leverage CLI into automation. And so while we cover both, that's my section. I want to start by kind of dating myself a bit. The first time I started thinking about building automations as I was running and managing networks, the best tools for the job at that time were like bash scripts and expect. And yeah, I learned very quickly that just wasn't a good way to do it. Why? Because I needed better tools. And so when I look at the ecosystem today for network engineers that are interested or maybe must get into automation, it's amazing, right? I mean, look at all of the ecosystem that they have available, and these are solid tools. And so even in my own experience, I've had the opportunity to watch network engineers deploy brand new data centers, leaf and spine architectures, solely with Ansible playbooks, saving them tons and tons of time. I've talked to colleagues and friends in the industry that are running large networks, and they're using Python and NetMiko for making interface changes. And I've had friends in somewhat smaller networks using and leveraging Python and as well for doing VLAN changes. And so networking is one of the observations we're making is like people are really starting to gravitate towards this, and that's fantastic. Like I've been wanting to see this for a long time. The other thing is they're trying to figure out like what are the best tools for the job. So like what Chris said, they're going to gravitate towards things. And how they do it, it depends. Think about automation today. Really, one of the observations is how does automation in the networking world kind of spread through an organization? Well, you start with this idea, like as a bright-eyed network engineer, maybe I'm working, I'm working on things, and my day-to-day tasks, I start to identify certain things that are repetitive, right? And maybe because it's the way that we've always done it in the world of CLI, we get really fast at thinking in CLI, and we have the muscle memory to prove it. And but at some point it says, they say maybe like there's a backlog of this work. And no, they'll turn to this great ecosystem, they'll do some searching, maybe they'll get some advice from friends. And in order to automate these tasks, right, to maybe reduce some backlog, they'll gravitate towards a specific tool or a specific, framework of some sort. And then, they may have another colleague on that team, and they're thinking the same thing. They have the same realization. Hey, there's all these automation tools out there. There's this huge ecosystem of good stuff. I've got work that can be automated, that should be automated. Maybe I absolutely need it to be automated. And they gravitate towards something else. And what you have are these pockets of everybody has wrapped their hands around, these are my automations, right? And realistically, that's good. That's good because it's saving them time. But really, it needs to migrate from my automation and a bunch of people using my automations, like here on the left, and it needs to migrate to how do we take my automations and make them applicable to the team, right? So now we can kind of like leverage that automation across the team, and now we're seeing really big benefits this way. And then I've talked to a lot of folks that have been building their own automations, and they say, you know what, ultimately, I would love to be able to publish this even outside my team. Let's build strong automations. Let's make sure that they work well, and there's a lot of syntax checking and things like that. And then I would like to make that more of a self-service, right? And expose that to maybe teams outside of networking. And so that's kind of how we see this spreading today. I'll be honest, I think in CLI, I'm a network guy. And I've started, years ago, working in cloud infrastructure, taking a look at how networks work there, how cloud networking services works there. And my initial thought to that was, okay, well, I see a lot of dashboards. There's probably a lot of APIs behind the scenes. That I don't understand that. That's a lot of stuff that I don't get. And it's probably not a world based in CLI, which is where my origin point is. And what the insight that I found was that's not quite true. Actually, AWS, Google Cloud, Azure, They all have implementations of CLI. So now I'm thinking, well, that's pretty cool. I know CLI, they have CLI, and not only do they have it, people are using it, they're scripting on it. And now as a network engineer, if I'm starting to get into the cloud and being responsible for more network services and infrastructure in the cloud, wow, that's great. I need to leverage all of those tools too. So CLI automation isn't just about, all the things that we're familiar with in that world, but now we've got to support all of these tools too, because again, right tool for the right job. And so that brings us to Itentials Automation Gateway. We want to take all of this CLI-based automation, all of that work that's been done, and we want to put it into a platform so that it's no longer my automation, but it's now my team's automation and potentially automation outside of the team. We want to secure it. We want to organize it. We want to put it in an environment where we can test it and run. And then we want to be able to, of course, share it within the team and ultimately publish it outside the team. And so taking a look at the overall demo architecture, you're going to see this slide multiple times today because this is our overall demo architecture. I'll be focusing on the smaller bit on the left, Itentials Automation Gateway. With this, I have a CSR 1000V, so CLI-based router. This is actually located in Cisco DevNet, so we're living on the edge here. So we'll be doing some automations against it. I'm going to take you through basically 4 steps. I'm going to show you leveraging a Python script to do something simple like create an interface. We'll go into Ansible, check the interface. We'll use Terraform to destroy an environment. We're not going to destroy Cisco DevNet, but we'll destroy an environment. And then we'll turn and take a look at how we can do self-service through APIs. Okay, fantastic. Let me log into Automation Gateway and we'll take you to the home here. All right, so let me start off by giving you some context. What I do not want you to focus on is the automations that I'm showing you. I mean, admittedly, the automations we build here are very simple. That's not the focus. That's not what we're trying to show you here. What I want you to focus on is the benefits that Automation Gateway gives you for your automations that you've built using all of these tools, because that's the key. Remember, huge ecosystem of awesome tools. How do we get from my automation to my teams and beyond? And then leverage that across the organization. And that's what Automation Gateway is about. So I'm not building awesome automations, you guys are, and we're helping you develop that within your organization. So imagine me, let's just say I am the Python NetMiko guy of the network team. That's what everybody knows me as. And now I have my greatest creation is iOS create interface, right? That's it. I've spent hours and hours on this. And not only that, it's saved me countless hours, right? As an example. And so just by onboarding it into Automation Gateway, anybody that on my team that has access to it can now find it, first of all. So imagine if I'm in the world of my automations, then how can anybody find anything that I have? So now they can find it. And if they can find it, they can click on it, and then they can actually take a look at it, right? And so while I know Python, maybe somebody else on my team doesn't know Python, and now they can actually take a look at this. Maybe it just demystifies some things. Maybe they know a little Python, and now they're learning things that I'm doing here. Maybe they're seeing all this clever programming wizardry that I've got going on here. So it helps to extend this so that people can actually find it. But if they can find it, we really want to extend this into the team so that they can run it, test it, run it, and use it. So in order to execute it, you can go here, but let me ask you a question. Given the script, how does somebody without a Python background or know how to read code, know what the valid inputs are for this particular script, right? They really don't. Yeah, I guess you could read the code, but again, if they don't know the code, they really wouldn't know what to pass to it. So what we in Automation Gateway, what we want is we want people who onboard their automations to decorate their automations. So decoration, I'll show you what a decoration looks like here, and I'm gonna go to pull a decoration in that's specific. But a decoration simply is a JSON schema that identifies and defines the inputs for the script. Okay, and as you onboard any kind of network or CLI automation into Automation Gateway, we provide a baseline decoration, and if you look here. It's just an array of strings, right? Because if you think about a command line script of some sort, you're going to run it, pass a series of strings to it that are arguments, And so that's what this JSON schema is. It defines the inputs to the automation script. So what I've done here is simply define the inputs, right? And why is this important? For a number of reasons. We're concerned with what gets passed to a script. We want some sanity checking, and we believe that by defining that within the platform, we give a level of some guardrails and some guidance. So if I am running this script now you see the inputs have changed, and if I go to the execute side here, now it's specifically giving me the inputs that I need in order to run the script. And so from here, I can. Let's just go ahead and create that interface. So I'm going to create an interface, loopback 999, give it a description, IP address, /32 netmask, and we're going to run this. So I've just created that decoration. It's presented me with all the inputs that are required, a little bit of guardrail, sanity checking. We want to validate that input. We're going to pass that over to my script itself, which is now going to go out and do those changes on our our shared 1000V. And there we go. We have a successful call. Successful call there. And then we can actually see, you can speak the language of CLI and we can see, okay, that's the configuration lines it did. Fantastic. We have an interface called loopback 999 now. So now imagine, go ahead.
So when you execute there, is there a way, and you may get to this, and if you're going to, please tell me to stand down.
Okay.
When I execute that, I get nervous, right? Because is there any checks and balances that you just did other than context? Are you actually doing a check to validate so the user understands what is going to change when they actually execute? Or are you just fire and forget it? Or is it kind of a combination of all of those?
Well, it's a combination of all those, right? So part of the decoration is to help create some input validation right from the beginning. In this particular Python script, I'm using NetMiko, right? So its underlying checks and balances of things are part of that. And that's a good question. We're going to leverage. So our integration into a lot of these tools is also respecting and identifying their unique qualities. And I'll talk a little bit about that as well. But yes, we'll leverage that and respect those things. And of course, we'll add to it like the input validation from our decorations.
So just for clarity, so what you're saying is if I'm writing my Python code and leveraging NetMiko and things like that, I'm going to add those in myself.
Correct.
And you're just going to leverage what's in the code itself to do the checks and balances.
Correct. And again, like adding the input validation as kind of another layer, right, on top of that.
Okay, fair enough. Thank you.
You're welcome. So if I'm the Python / NetMiko guy, and but I have people on my team that are doing Ansible, so I can actually now take a look and say, oh, what have they onboarded? Here we go. We have some Ansible playbooks that are available to me, and this little blue triangle here means that they've gone ahead and decorated these very specifically for their automation. And so now I can take a look at their decorations and say, okay, that's how they've defined the inputs for this. I can look at the playbook. And so now as an outsider to somebody else's automation, it helps me to understand what they have. And now I get exposure to how these things work because I don't know how Ansible works. And now, if I wanted to, I could execute this against the inventory on Ansible. I can execute this in a test lab, that kind of thing. And so now I get exposure to that. I know what's going on, and we can start to leverage each other's tools as it's necessary or as it's convenient. And so what I said earlier about integration with, it's not just a place to sit all your automation. So for things like Ansible, which have device inventory, we'll take a look at modules here. We understand those elements of that. We integrate with them in a way that, so for instance, if you're familiar with Ansible, you're familiar with the fact that they have a lot of networking modules. One of them is iOS, and we understand that in that list of supported networking modules and commands, iOS command is going to be there, and we automatically do some decoration on that to make it easier to be able to leverage those in here. So I can use the iOS command, go straight to execute, and I'm pulling the iOS up from hosts that are part of the inventory here, and I can simply put a command in. I want to validate that my loopback interface was made with my awesome Python script. and then I'll run that using Ansible, this module, and get the feedback, get the output right back from the CSR. And so sure enough, loopback 999 does exist. Fantastic. And so finally, I'm not a Terraform person, but you know what? I occasionally need, there's somebody on my team that does the Terraform stuff. And for my lab, I need Terraform, I need AWS resources. And so they've built me a Terraform plan. And again, this is an integration with Terraform. And if I take a look at this, it's more than just a place to plant your Terraform plans and then we run them. We actually have the ability to decorate them. So what he's done for me is put up some guardrails. I can only select from a dropdown of these 4 regions. Fantastic. And then as part of that, if I execute, we automatically understand the different phases, right? So this has already been through initialize, plan, apply, validate. So it's up and running. And in this case, I'm going to shut everything down. I just want to destroy it. And so now I can go to my dropdown, which is part of the JSON schema decoration, select US East, and then just run that. And then from here, we should get in a few seconds, hopefully, will depends on things, especially if you've done this in the cloud before. We should get a result back saying, hey, the destruction is underway.
Can I ask another question?
Sure.
So when we talk about Terraform, obviously we know we can implement things such as policy as code and things like that. Do you guys respect that from a policy as code? How does that look? You know, you don't have to go deep. It just, you know, I assume things like Sentinel and things like that are supported, et cetera.
Yeah.
What are you guys seeing from that perspective?
Okay, we got it right. Yeah, we're going to respect the underlying technology that's being used here. So again, we're going to augment things as needed, as required, but we're also going to always respect that, right? Because like Chris said earlier, like the right tools for the right job, we want to encourage that. We don't want to inhibit. And so if those things are part of the standard way you would build a Terraform plan in your automations, then we're going to respect that as well.
Cool, thank you.
Okay, so that
and you accidentally destroy something. Is there any backup to that at all?
In my demo? No. Well, I can go and initialize it again and go through the Terraform plan again, initialize develop.
But if you're in a production and accidentally destroy the wrong thing, let's say you destroy US East 2 or something like that, is there any type of backup that you can go to, or do you have to set those up yourself?
You would have to set those up yourself. So within here, we're just simply exposing these things. So you would have to build that as part of your overall, automation.
Yeah, and this is Chris. The one thing I would add is that as we get into the Automation Studio demonstration, that's really where we start to tie these multiple things together. So, accidentally destroying it, there's all sorts of pre-checks, integration with other systems, and then rollback mechanisms kind of at a higher level. From an automation gateway perspective, we're really focused on onboarding. And I like the comment from Larry about being kind of uneasy as he saw a Python script that somebody else wrote, executed through the UI. I think that's kind of underlying the reason why we think this is useful, is in the sense of, I have my stuff in my home drive. The question is it worthy of sharing with others? Is it something we can build on top of? And it's not an argument to say that, Larry's script or anybody else's script is the best or the worst. The question is it leverageable? If it is leverageable, how do I put authorization around it? How do I put guardrails around it? How do I do data validation around it? So when we start to integrate it into a higher level concept, which you'll see in the next section, we can have those appropriate balances, pre-checks, rollback mechanisms. And the benefit of Terraform is if it is immutable infrastructure, the question is, do I quote unquote roll it back, or do I just redeclare it within the cloud infrastructure? And what you saw from Rich across Python scripts and Ansible and Terraform, again, just kind of the underlying theme here is the right tool for the right job. So depending upon what type of infrastructure we're dealing with, we want to do the most appropriate thing.
That's
right. Hopefully that answers the question.
And hey, Chris, and again, I don't want to go too deep because I could go all day about Terraform and all these other things. But when we get into the studio portion, will you guys go over, like, obviously with Terraform, we need to care about state and things like that. Are you guys containing state within the platform? Is that something we'll cover down that, in the studio portion? How are you guys handling state from that perspective?
So from our perspective, we're not going to maintain. We're
It'll
not
be
going to
coming from the code, right?
Yeah, because at the end of the day, it goes back to kind of our general behavior with all of these systems. So in a different part of the demonstration, we're going to be dealing with Meraki, if you guys choose to. And the idea there is that we want to respect Meraki as the controller infrastructure that manages the Meraki infrastructure. We're going to federate the data. I don't expect to be quote unquote in control of Meraki. I expect people to log into Meraki and do other jobs. We're just a power user of that. So similar with the Terraform state files, like I expect other automations to be using that. It's an optional component that we can plug into these automations, but we don't want to take control of those things. Too many times when we built these platforms in the past, we built these big vertically integrated stacks, and you can't use any lower level concepts. You got to go all the way through the top because there's this tight coupling between everything. So we really think, if you look at other domains outside of networking, the idea of consuming APIs, producing APIs, and working within an ecosystem, we think is super important. And we kind of want to respect Terraform state management the way they do it. We're always open for ideas on how we can have the most robust integration with each of these technologies. So we'd be super excited to take it offline.
No, I love that. And again, doing, kind of the same thing, right tool for the right job.
That's right. Don't
do what you're not, don't take control of those things. So that's good. I just wanted clarity on that state because I know that's something that people are going to go,
yeah, it's big.
Where's it going?
Yeah.
And obviously if it's in the code, it goes wherever you define it. You guys don't care. You're just respecting whatever's in the code. So thank you.
Yeah. Thanks, Larry. So let me finish this out because I know we're running a little long here. So remember that last step is how do we go from our team and then expose that, outside of that. Within the automation gateway, we have API documentation that allows you to use APIs for a lot of the features and functionality of automation gateway. One of them is being able to execute a script through an API. And so you can test that, try that out from within here. So that's part of the testing and making sure that, hey, now we feel confident that these scripts, before we expose them through an API to a particular group or team, that they run well. And so the last part of this is I'll do it from Postman, so an external source. So I've already got a Postman collection here that's pointed to our automation gateway. My first step, the first API call here is to send a login. And now my awesome create script, I'm going to create a brand new loopback interface on that same CSR. And now that I'm authenticated, I can actually execute the script. And now that's going through an API call into Automation Gateway. We want to make it nice and easy to do that so that you can turn your CLI, transform it into an API for publishing outside the team. And so now that this particular script is joined into an API through the system, we have a success here. Thank you. Now, like when Alex talks about Automation Studio in the next portion, and that's about API automation. Now this script is something that he could leverage inside of that. And that's exactly, I think, what you were talking about, Larry, is like, where we're going with this.